do? Then why did you say that we stink?
Bro, you really
How we dirty?
Oh shit, you punched it right in the fucking face!
That you do? Then why did you say that we stink?
Bro, you really
How we dirty?
Oh shit, you punched it right in the fucking face!
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. So, down in Georgia, a brother named Tony Green was shot and killed by Kingsland Police. Now, let's go back and see what happened to this brother and what led him to get shot by the police.
New tonight, the officer who shot and killed a man after a traffic stop in Kingsland, Georgia, is on administrative leave.
The GBI says Officer Zechariah Presley shot and killed 33-year-old Anthony Green near King Avenue. Investigators are working to enhance the dash cam and body cam footage to get a clearer picture of the shooting, but they say releasing the video would jeopardize the investigation. First Coast News reporter Eric Alvarez has new insight on the timeline.
Investigators are still trying to figure out exactly what happened between Anthony Green and Officer Zechariah Presley Wednesday night. But radio calls obtained by First Coast News suggest the police officers did not give dispatchers a whole lot of information that night.
Squad 3 Engine 3, you're assigned to a black male. Officers aren't giving us much information. We asked them what they needed a squad for. They realized that it's going to be a male subject for shots fired.
That radio call from a dispatcher to first responders went out at 10:48 Wednesday night, approximately 6 minutes after officers reported two men running from a traffic stop.
Got one running. Got two running.
According to the GBI, Kingsland Police tried to stop a car driven by 33-year-old Anthony Green when the two men ran off. One of the men got away, but Officer Zechariah Presley found Green near the Pineland Bank on King Avenue. The GBI says a brief altercation ensued. Presley fired multiple shots. Green died. The next day, friends and loved ones left notes and balloons at a makeshift memorial.
It's just sad.
The GBI says the officer was wearing a body camera. Green's family is demanding to see the footage.
We just want justice. We just want to know what happened and why did the officer have to shoot him.
But the GBI says it will not release the footage at this time, claiming doing so would jeopardize the investigation. The first responder communications obtained by First Coast News captured the moment one of the officers reported the shooting at 10:45.
Black male, shot fired.
4 minutes after the chase began. 2 minutes before, dispatchers didn't know what to tell first responders.
Officers aren't giving us much information.
6 minutes in Kingsland, leading to 48 hours of unanswered questions. Right now, investigators are still interviewing witnesses. The GBI has not identified the other man who ran away from that traffic stop. The GBI is awaiting the autopsy results from a crime lab in Savannah.
So, according to the police, Officer Zechariah Presley was following the brother Tony Green, and they still haven't really said why he was following them, and they haven't really said what happened. They never said why he was following them for, if he pulled them over. They've just been very vague about it. But they said all of a sudden this brother Tony Green stopped and him and another passenger got out and ran. So this cop, Zechariah Presley, chased the brother Tony Green. And when he caught up, he said they made physical contact, which they described as a brief physical altercation, whatever that's supposed to mean. But then the brother Tony Green got away and took off running again, and that's when Officer Zechariah Presley decides to open fire, most likely shooting him in the back. This brother was unarmed because, you know, if he was armed, that's the very first thing they would have said. And he was running in the other direction, but the cops still feared for his safety. But the police still haven't been clear about what happened. In this case, the cop did wear his body camera, but it still doesn't make a difference because the police won't release the body camera footage or any other evidence they have. But even though they refused to release the video evidence to his family, eventually, in this case, the cop Zechariah Presley did get charged.
Charged with manslaughter. A week after a Kingsland officer opens fire and kills a father of three, that officer turns himself in to authorities. Officer Zechariah Presley now facing charges of voluntary manslaughter and violation of oath of office. Investigators say that officer unnecessarily fired his gun at 33-year-old Tony Green as Green was running away from a traffic stop. It's unknown whether Green was armed or unarmed at the time.
Today, a huge development. Presley surrendered to authorities not long after charges were filed. News4Jax reporter Eric Avanier is in Kingsland, where residents say the charge of manslaughter is building tension in the community.
This memorial site marks the spot where 33-year-old Tony Green was fatally shot by Kingsland police officer Zechariah Presley. While this memorial brings people together, we're learning that the manslaughter charge against the officer may be dividing the community. The city of Kingsland is not known for everyday gun violence, especially gun violence involving a police officer. But now that Officer Zechariah Presley has been criminally charged in the shooting death of Tony Green, residents are speaking out about how both the fatal shooting and the charges against the officer are dividing the community.
There's going to be some folks out there who think just because, you know, a man's nose isn't entirely clean, which nobody's is, you know, that there might have been a reason for it. There's no reason for gunning a man down who's unarmed.
Some are outraged, and some just are blowing it off, and I don't understand why.
I would say that a divide has taken place when it comes to, you know, blacks and white, you know, whites and all that stuff. So I would say that a divide is taking place. So I pray that that bridge can be mended as justice is served.
Nora says in the end, everyone is not going to be happy about how this plays out.
There's going to be those who think justice is being done right now, those who think not enough justice is being done, and those who think things should have happened as they happened.
One woman we spoke to says the divide over this investigation is so thick that she stopped reading comments on social media.
Now, in this case, they did charge this cop with manslaughter and violating his oath to office. But even though he was charged, we can't just be happy with that. A lot of times, just their words of apology is good enough for us. And the police are being charged more than they were in the past, but they're still not getting convicted. I won't be happy until this cop served the last day of the maximum penalty he can get. And even though the police did fire this cop in this case, they are still withholding evidence and information. They still won't let the family just even see the video, because even though they charged them, they know information like that could affect the trial. They're still low-key trying to protect this cop. It's one thing for this cop to be fired. It's another thing for this cop to go to jail for the crime he committed. And the media is still doing their part, doing everything they can to make the brother Tony Green look bad. They're reaching so much, they bring up every encounter he's ever had with the police. Meanwhile, when you look at this cop's history, he had a violent record so long, they had no choice but to talk about it.
Tonight we're learning more about the Kingsland officer who investigators say shot and killed 33-year-old Tony Green, a father of three. News4Jax reporter Janice Harris has the officer's entire personnel file and any incidents Tony Green had with Kingsland Police.
25-year-old Zechariah Presley has worked for Kingsland Police 1 year and 1 month. He's had 9 incidents as an officer. Before Presley was hired, the department found 10 flags that warranted further review, including domestic violence against his wife, but Kingsland Police still hired Presley. According to the Kingsland Police Department, Presley had 9 incidents as an officer. Let's take a look at some of the incidents. Presley drove at 100 miles per hour in his own car while off duty trying to catch a driver who was operating recklessly. The driver got away. A traffic stop for an unknown reason. The man wrote in a letter to KPD saying he felt he was in fear for his life from Presley and another officer who would park in front of his house. An internal affairs investigation found the claims were unfounded. That man was black. Presley tasered a man who was drunk and disorderly who threatened to throw bullets at officers. He was black. Presley tasered a man acting suspiciously who would not show officers the contents of a bag. It was drug paraphernalia. He was white. Presley tasered a man who showed up without an appointment to speak with the Camden County School Superintendent and refused to leave. He was white. In the reports, Presley is advised he needs to improve procedures and protocols. None of the incidents involved Tony Green. There is one letter from a citizen commending Presley for his professional approach to law enforcement. That man was black. Kingsland Police files show that Tony Green was given a ticket for suspended license in March. Green was arrested once for a misdemeanor in 2016. Kingsland Police have interacted with Green at least 8 times. Either he was calling them, police made a traffic stop, or an officer initiated the interaction. We can find only one time Tony Green and Officer Presley were in the same incident report. March 12th, the report shows a woman called police, and Presley and another officer responded to the call. The caller accused Green and another woman of trespassing, but no arrest was made.
So Zechariah Presley has only been a cop for a year. And in that year, he had 9 different incidents. This cop was out there looking for problems. And before the Kingsland Police even hired him, they found 10 red flags in his file, including beating up his wife. But they still hired him anyway. In 2016, another police department, St. Mary's Police, rejected him because they found out he lied about using drugs. He lied about committing domestic violence. He lied about committing violent crimes that would keep him from getting hired. He even lied about filing false insurance claims. But the Kingsland Police ignored all of that. They let him stay on the police force until an unarmed black man ended up dead. And now, without showing any evidence, decided to charge him. The arrest warrant said he acted solely as the result of sudden, violent, and irresistible passion. But still don't release evidence because they low-key cape for him. When they kill us, it's irresistible passion. They talk about it a completely different way, like with the sister Nia Wilson. She was stabbed to death in cold blood by this thug John Cowell. But the media, who got called out for it, portrayed this young woman in a negative light. And even though they did arrest him peacefully and charged him, the media is still trying to control the narrative. They're trying to tell us it's not about race and we need to take race out of it. But for them, it's always been about race. And right now, we're in another one of those violent peaks where they're attacking us, men, women, and children. That's why they can put out movies like The Purge. And you have people dressed up just like they were in Charlottesville going around murdering black people in their own neighborhood. They had the KKK going inside of churches to murder black people. But we have to realize The Purge is based off real life. What happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, that was a real life purge. What happened in Rosewood, Florida, that was a real life purge. They went in there and they murdered them people, and it was legal. They were aided by the American government. The only difference now is, because of integration, you can't just target a black town. But they're out here targeting us individually. And at this point, we can't afford to fight with each other. We have to be on the same page. We have to be on code. The one thing we have to learn how to do is protect ourselves. For the last 400 plus years, we haven't done a good job at protecting ourselves. And if we don't learn how to do that at some point, then our blood is going to continue to be shed.
They were approached by an individual with a knife who struck very rapidly. It was, in my close to 30 years of police experience, probably one of the most vicious attacks that I've seen. And as you look behind me, and the screen's off to the side, is John Cowell, who is the suspect that we've identified. He is a violent felon who is currently on parole, and we currently have an active arrest warrant for his arrest for the murder of Nia.
Chief, tell us what he's on parole for.
What I can tell you is you know, the criminal rap sheet is confidential, but there is a series of violent offenses that you'll find if you do your due diligence on that.
The man accused of stabbing an 18-year-old woman to death on a BART platform went before a judge today. KPIX5 reporter Susie Steimel was in the courtroom and has new information about how BART identified the suspect so quickly. Susie?
Liz, it was a packed courtroom. About 50 members of Nia Wilson's family were inside the courtroom today. They have one resounding message, and that's that they are asking for justice.
I'm just so sad for my baby, that's all I know.
Wearing pictures of her daughter around her neck, Alicia Grayson walks into court to see the man accused of murdering her 18-year-old daughter.
He still get to breathe, you know.
Nia Wilson was with her two sisters Sunday night at the MacArthur BART station when 27-year-old John Cowell allegedly stabbed Nia and her sister Latifah in the neck.
You know, it has shaken the community, it's shaken all of us.
Alameda County District Attorney Nancy O'Malley says she expects to put Cowell in prison for the rest of his life.
You know, it's just a ruthless, horrible crime with a huge, overwhelming tragedy for the family as well as for our whole community.
She says they're investigating this as a possible hate crime, but for now they still don't have a concrete motive for the murder.
We're still gathering evidence to look at that, and we always have the opportunity, if we think that can prove the hate crime allegation, then we'll amend the complaint.
Alicia says she's dealing with a mixture of emotions, but she says one thing is clear to her. She says BART failed her family and the community.
And BART better do something today. The man BART better step it up. It don't need to happen to nobody else's child.
Cowell does have a lengthy criminal history, which we've already mentioned over the past couple of days. We know he's been charged with robbery and assault and has multiple restraining orders against him. His family has come out to say that he does have some mental health issues, but the DA said today she believes he will be deemed competent to stand trial. We should also mention this was not his arraignment, just first appearance. He will be entering a plea back here August 22nd. Live in Oakland, Susie Steimel, KPIX5.
The memorial for Nia at the MacArthur BART station grows larger by the day. BART says it has no plans to remove the tributes, at least for now.
I'll send it to your officer. I show him now. You still trying to get off? You got his back. You got his back. And then you got him on that seat. Then you got him on that ground. Mom, we send it to him. Oh, what's that send this in? How you gonna do a child like that? Good? Okay, listen. I'll let you up. Stand up and have a conversation, okay? I don't need you running around like that. Hey, look, we don't run around. He's a child. But he's a child! You don't want to be doing that. Tactical officer. No, he didn't. Okay. He did not. He did not. Everybody back away. He did. Back up. He did. He did, babe. He didn't take your officer out. Oh, don't push her. Don't push her. For Drejka, come on back. What are you doing there? You're so unprofessional right now. Oh, he did unprofessional and you know it.
I'm trying to have a conversation.
Oh, we know. It's bored. You know, we got your name. But just like I said, I asked him why she wasn't getting locked up because she came to my sister's house. This is my sister's property. And she stole money from him. That's where I'm going to the Clark County when I leave here.
Occupied 4 times. I'm gonna send the dog. I'm gonna send the dog. Don't worry, I'm gonna send the dog. Hold on. Buddy, up. Come here. Come here. I'll send the dog. Come here. Come here right now. We have to send the dog. Get on the ground. Traffic through please. one is standing, two at gunpoint. To the ground. Stop! Lights! Off! Off! Stop moving! Stop moving! Stand still! Hands up! Off! Off! Off, please! Off! 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 Do not move! Right, Jacob. Off! 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 Off!
The sound and video of a police dog repeatedly biting a young suspect is graphic. We're showing the whole video of that attack. The reason? The canine was given no order to apprehend the teen and then ignored more than 20 commands from his handler to stop biting.
I'm gonna send the dog. I'm gonna send the dog. Don't run. I'm gonna send the dog.
Passengers bail out of a stolen car and run from police.
Come here. Come here right now.
A 17-year-old stops running and then follows all of the officer's orders. The canine handler is just out of frame with his gun drawn as the teen sits down behind a bush and puts his hands up and down and up again.
To the ground. Stop. Lights. Off. Off. Stop moving. Stop moving. Stand still! Hands up! Off! Off! Off, please! Off! Ow! Ow! Do not move! Right, Jacob. Off! 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 Off!
The 17-year-old was hospitalized with severe bite wounds. He was arrested along with the others, but prosecutors dropped all charges against the wounded teen.
It troubles me that the canine did not release sooner than what he did.
I counted 21 commands, stop, and then 20 off. 18 of those off commands occurred after he already had the teen in his grasp. How many commands of off should it take before a police dog lets go of a teen that he has in his jaws?
I would say that ideally one command should be sufficient.
But Roswell police commanders had no problem with this incident when reviewing it 2 years ago. Internal documents show they determined no training issues observed, and the canine responded as he should. The dog was not taken out of service. If you had a police car where you hit the brakes 18 times in a row and the car didn't stop and it hurt somebody, even a suspect, wouldn't you take that car out of service?
The officers that were on scene did everything they were supposed to do. They were as the dog approached the young man, the officer was giving commands for him to stop at that point. But even beyond that, the officer immediately went over, grabbed the dog, and was trying to get the dog off of the person, and did ultimately shock the dog to get the dog off of the person. And then there was a failure of the leash. The dog doesn't know that there's a failure of the leash. All he knows is he's been released.
And we were unable to locate the teen. We would like to talk with him. This happened 2 years ago, but our initial requests for the video were turned down because the case was technically still open, and the police chief avoided multiple requests for an interview with the investigators until this week. As with the coin flip case, Roswell officers alerted us to this video because they felt the public was at risk, and command staff did not properly handle those concerns.
Stop pulling, sir. Sir, stop pulling. Stop. Stop pulling. Stop pulling. Stop pulling. Stop. Out. 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 Stop pulling. Hey. Out. Stop. Sir, stop pulling. Just stop. Oh my God.
St. Paul police have made several changes to their canine unit after a dog clamped its jaw around a man's arm for nearly 30 seconds.
It happened last Friday when police say they were searching for a suspect who ran. The man who was bitten was lying on the ground following police orders right as the dog got loose. WCCO's Jeff Wagner shows us how the man is recovering.
Grabbing a glass of water sounds easy, but Glenn Slaughter is still getting the hang of it again.
I tried to, like this morning, try to hold a basketball. That not happening.
Slaughter says he was just heading to work last week as officers searched for a suspect outside his house.
All of a sudden, I see flashlights like, hey, put your hands up. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, hey, get on the ground, get on the ground. So I'm laying on the ground, like just following orders and stuff like that.
Body camera footage from the canine officer shows what happened next. After securing the dog to a leash, police say the collar broke.
All I just heard was a no, and then the dog was on top of me. It's like, oh God.
The officer commands the dog to release Slaughter's arm, but it wouldn't budge.
He's like, sir, don't reach for him. I'm like, no, it's hurting.
After nearly 30 seconds, the dog lets go. It's the third bite incident involving St. Paul Police's canine unit and an innocent person in the past 2 years. In light of the most recent one, Chief Todd Axtell imposed several restrictions. They include canine officers inspecting their equipment on camera before each shift, shorter leashes for the dogs, and a twice-a-month assessment on the canine team's abilities. An external audit will also be done.
I mean, and that's a good start, I guess. But like I said, I'll believe it when I see it, when the change actually comes, and it needs to happen.
The St. Paul Police Union's president feels the changes are a knee-jerk reaction.
Come in and do a review, and if tweaks can be made, let's do it. But you do not want to place further restrictions on dog deployment, because that is simply just going to make the city of St. Paul less safe.
Slaughter says he plans to talk with a lawyer and weigh his options. The dog's handler, Officer Mike Ross, will be transferred out of the canine unit, possibly to patrol. The dog has been retired.
Braiding and twisting 3-year-old Amaya Norris's natural hair is a weekly ritual that includes several coconut oil-based products to make it easier to comb.
Yeah, I love it. It smells delicious. It smells like cookies to me.
Mom may like the smell, but according to this note Tiona Norris posted on her Facebook page, Amaya's teacher didn't like it, basically saying,
"Your child stinks. Don't put the coconut oil in her hair." The kids were teasing her.
Norris says Amaya was the only black child in her preschool class at the Raggedy Ann Learning Center in Elmhurst.
I was just hurt for my child.
Especially after Norris says she met with the teacher and school administrator and learned the children in the class never complained. It was just the teacher who didn't like the smell. You view that as what?
Discriminative, stereotypical, racist.
We called the school and left several messages. We visited and got this.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Tucker from Channel 2 News.
Goodbye. Norris says the administrator did apologize but took no action against the teacher, so she pulled her daughter out of the school, afraid her child would be treated negatively by the teacher and that would impact her self-esteem and confidence.
If you couldn't understand why a mother is so upset about us receiving a letter like that, then there's no way that you can even deserve to teach my child.
Norris says she's not looking for anything from the school. She just thinks administrators need to consider giving the teacher racial sensitivity training to prevent another incident.
Move.
Okay.
No, for real, stop.
Back the fuck up. Move.
Get out of Berkeley.
Move. Move. No, we will start. No, you go. Move. Back up.
Don't touch me.
Move.
Don't touch
Move.
me.
Go back.
Don't touch me.
Hey, please. You guys keep going. Karina, I need you to go.
Stop.
Please.
You're pregnant. You need to stop. No, you don't have to. Move.
Go. You.
That's why we went to get these drinks.
Move.
It's aggressive for what?
Move. You need to back up. Back up. Move.
So I need
Okay, do you need to call the police on you? Stop.
Witness, please. I'm really trying to walk. I don't know her.
Stop.
No, wait, please, just be a witness.
tell us how she have the right
to
Okay, so this mob of people just came at me from out of nowhere and tried to assault me.
Stop.
Just came at me from out of nowhere and tried to assault me.
Stop.
Stop. Why? Fuck you. Where's my I cannot believe that. Why?
Stop resisting. Stop. Okay? Sit up. Sit up.
Why?
Stop resisting. Stop. Okay? Sit up.
She hit me 3 times and she called me a ghetto trash.
Leave me alone.
She said I'm not raised right. I have no education.
Okay, I'll pay you.
And she wants to pay me. She wants to pay me. Shut the fuck.
Is it authentic about all of Black America or just a segment of Black America? I mean, my concern is that white kids that are buying this stuff, a lot of the music reinforces negative stereotypes, that blacks are violent, that they disrespect women, that they kill each other, that they use bad language, and that's supposed to be the black reality.
Well,
does that concern you?
That's just a result that we don't have a lot of media outlets, because the white community is way more violent than the black community on a bigger level. You talk on black violence, look at Bosnia and Herzegovina. You know, it's not a black face nowhere in there except in the UN. But you and white people disrespect their women on a bigger level than black people ever could do. It's a white man that says, well, a woman only makes 71 cents when I make $1. You know, that's nothing black got to do with that right there. So the kids today are really not concerned on really white people endorsing who we are. We're not concerned about that in '93, and I think that we really need to refocus as a community and could care less who looks bad upon us, because it doesn't make a difference. White people have really never helped our situation. Matter of fact, they was founders in putting us in this situation, so their endorsement shouldn't matter in 1993.
So you don't care what they think?
Not at all.
All right, and we back on the forecast. So in Clearwater, Florida, a brother was murdered by a white man, a civilian, Michael Drejka, after he initiated the altercation over a parking spot. So let's see what it takes for a regular civilian that's not even a cop to be able to get away with murder.
That was my high school sweetheart, and it hurt so bad.
For Brittany Jacobs, there are no words that will ease her pain after losing the love of her life and the father of her children outside this Florida convenience store. Her boyfriend, 28-year-old Markeis Mcglockton, was shot and killed by this man, who says he fired his gun in self-defense.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want in jail?
The shooting has lit up the streets.
The confrontation between the two men turned into a shooting.
Testing the Stand Your Ground law. And poured gas on the fiery debate over controversial Stand Your Ground laws.
Justice! Now!
was around 3:30, so you know that's a busy time, people getting off of work.
Jacobs says she and her boyfriend needed something at the convenience store Thursday afternoon. The store's security cameras were recording it all.
I'm going with the first parking space around this time, which was a handicapped parking spot. My man Markeis gets out, and my son Markeis Jr. get out, and they go in the store. I'm sitting in the car with a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old.
After about 20 minutes, she says she sees a silver Jeep pull around, and then this man, Michael Drejka, steps out and walks around her car.
You know, I'm feeling scared around this time because I don't know this man. He goes to the front of my car. He's saying that I'm parked in a handicapped spot, which I'm clearly very aware of.
They start exchanging words. It gets angry.
This man is now yelling at me and telling me to move my effing car. Markeis comes out, pushes the man and telling him to get away from his girl. Markeis steps back because now Markeis is endangered.
The man he just pushed pulls a gun from his pocket, and in a flash, he pulls the trigger.
Everybody by this time is panicking.
Her boyfriend stumbles back into the store. Their 5-year-old son is watching his father die. Markeis Mcglockton is pronounced dead at the hospital.
It's a memory that's always going to be with my 5-year-old. My 3 kids will be without a father.
She says what happened the next day blew her mind. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Department announced that it was not charging or arresting Michael Drejka.
Under these circumstances, we cannot make an arrest.
Police say that he was standing his ground.
The law on stand your ground is clear, and the Florida legislature has spoken on this.
The law is extremely subjective. If they believe reasonably that they are in harm's way, they can use force and even deadly force to protect themselves.
Brittany Jacobs says her boyfriend was defending her.
Who, as a real man, will see another man arguing with his girl? Like, who wouldn't stand up and defend their lady?
There are reports that this isn't Drejka's first time getting into an argument over a parking space.
Just to argue, just to find someone to argue with?
The owner of the convenience store says he had to call the police a month ago after Drejka got into a shouting match with this man.
Out here, he said he'll shoot me, call me and stuff like that. So, I think it's a racial issue.
But police say the history doesn't matter.
So what's relevant is not whether this guy's a good guy, nice guy, or whether he's a jerk. What's relevant was he in fear of further bodily harm.
I think stand your ground laws have become controversial. If the police believe that there is probable cause that someone used the stand your ground law, they can't make an arrest.
In 2005, Florida was the first state to put stand your ground laws on the books, and since then, more than 33 states have passed similar laws. People who support them say they allow homeowners, for example, to protect themselves from robbers and other criminals.
I've just been broken into. 3 men, 2 have shot in my house.
It's what happened in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma last year.
Are they bleeding? Yes, I believe one's down, one's still talking. You need to get here now.
That's 23-year-old Zach Peters on the line, locked inside his bedroom after shooting at the 3 teenagers who broke into his home.
Okay, what did you shoot them with? They were 15. Okay.
All 3 of the teens died. Peters was not charged with a crime.
It is the opinion of this office that Zachary Peters acted justifiably and in accordance with his rights as an Oklahoma citizen when he used deadly force to defend his home.
Attorney Gerald Griggs says in his experience, race matters in who can use these self-defense laws. White defendants, yes. Black defendants, not so much, he says.
Do you think the law is useful?
I think in certain cases it's useful, but I think in certain cases the effect is discriminatory.
So should it be on the books?
You know, I've always been a proponent of self-defense. I believe in self-defense, but I believe that self-defense should apply in all communities regardless of race or ethnic background, sexual orientation.
He feels police shouldn't be making the call, that each shooter should initially be arrested.
A large majority of the cases against African Americans are not resolved appropriately.
But saying you were standing your ground doesn't automatically mean the shooter avoids prosecution. Just ask Curtis Reeves.
What did you do with that pistol?
I shot him.
In 2014, the 75-year-old retired police officer shot and killed 43-year-old Chad Olson during an argument at this Florida movie theater.
Why did you shoot him?
At that point, it was his life or mine.
The two were arguing because Olson was using his cell phone during the previews of the movie. In court, Reeves said he fired in self-defense and said he felt threatened for his life because Olson was younger and taller.
He was getting ready to punch me, and I perceived that at some point, and that's when the pistol came out.
But at a pretrial hearing, the judge wasn't buying it, saying Reeves was anything but afraid. Olson's wife, Nicole, who was sitting next to him, says her husband was using the phone to reach their babysitter.
Can nobody in the world stand up in a movie theater without having to fear that they are in jeopardy of losing their life?
She was shot in the hand by the bullet that killed her husband. Reeves goes on trial for second-degree murder this February. In Pinellas County, Florida, the state attorney will now investigate the case.
There's no way this man should be out free, walking around, still armed.
Brittany Jacobs knows that no court can bring back the father of her children, but she's hoping it will bring them justice.
I just want justice. I need something to be done because this is not right. Something should have been done about this a long, long time ago. It shouldn't have to happen, you know, for a man to, you know, pass away in front of his child.
So this guy, Michael Drejka, approached Markeis Mcglockton's wife, most likely because he saw it was a woman by herself with 2 small children and looked like an easy target. So this brother comes out of the store and sees what's happening, and he does what he's supposed to do, which is go protect his family, which it was a good thing he was there because this man was actually armed. It's no telling what he would have did to this woman or their children. And this is why, as black men and women, we need to put our issues to the side right now, because they are approaching us, they are harming our children. And this is not the first time this guy Michael Drejka went around picking fights over parking spots. He must walk around armed looking for an opportunity to kill a black person. He starts a fight and then claims self-defense. And more people than you realize feel this way. They go around picking fights with black people and are armed and are looking for an excuse to get away with murdering a black person. That has been America's pastime. The only difference between now and back then is they have to find a way to claim self-defense. This man, Michael Drejka, is more worried about the parking lot at a gas station than the owner of the store. Even the owner called the police on this man before. The police chief, Bob Gualteri, says his past doesn't matter, his history doesn't matter. All that matters is if he felt threatened. But if he felt so threatened, why go around starting fights with people? Meanwhile, they bring up a parking ticket you had 12 years ago. The only history that doesn't matter or that shouldn't be brought up is their violent history. And the very next day, the police chief says there's nothing he can do or will do about it. I guess it only takes him 24 hours to investigate a murder. They said the man who started the fight feared for his life, and he needed to defend himself, and it falls under the stand your ground law.
That's for his kids, and he didn't have to go like this, man. He didn't have to go like this.
Friends and family of Markeis Mcglockton speak out and ask for charges to be filed against the man who killed him.
This story is sparking a national debate. A fight over a parking spot at a Clearwater convenience store ends with Mcglockton shot and killed.
The shooter, Michael Drejka, says his life was in danger and he had no choice. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office is not pressing charges. They say Florida's Stand Your Ground law applies because Mcglockton pushed him to the ground. Even though the Sheriff's Office did not charge Drejka, the final decision will be made by the Pinellas County State Attorney's Office.
Less than an hour ago, Mcglockton's family spoke at a church in Clearwater. 10 News reporter Grady Trimble is there live now. Grady, what did the family have to say?
Well, Allison, Mcglockton's attorneys say everyone around the world now has seen how Markeis Mcglockton died. Today at this press conference, it was all about showing how he lived. They remember him as a loving father, a husband, a son who cared deeply about his kids. They say the video of the shooting that people all over the world have seen at this point speaks for itself, that the man who shot Mcglockton is now walking free and, as they put it, standing behind and hiding behind the Stand Your Ground law. Mcglockton's family has hired attorneys. They've launched their own investigation into the shooting, and they hope to uncover more details that will lead to a charge against Michael Drejka.
A 5-year-old witnessed this whole thing.
Yes.
A 5-year-old. 5, not 12 years old, not 13, but a 5 years old. You know, this is messed up.
This type of stuff has been going on for way too long.
far too long. We need to put an end to this. Any kind of law that allows one man to kill another man, and the man that pulled the trigger don't even get fingerprinted, needs to stop. Something needs to be done.
The lawyers are urging people in the community to reach out to the state attorney's office and urge them to press charges against Drejka. The attorney says it could be months before any of those charges are filed, but they say they're in it for the long haul.
This guy shot and killed his brother in front of his wife and his children. He collapsed in front of his 5-year-old son. Do you know how that's going to affect him for the rest of his life? This is why we can't let this keep happening. And people are putting this on the stand your ground law. But it's not about that. The law doesn't really matter in situations like this. They can kill you in any state in America and say they fear for their lives, and it was self-defense, whether that state has stand your ground laws or not. In Florida, you have women like Aramis Ayala, the first black state attorney. They took all of her cases away from her and tried to get her out of office that she was voted in. All because she's against the death penalty. Not just the death penalty for black people, but the death penalty for everybody. And this black woman has been getting death threats for a while. But as a community, those are the times we need to be supporting our lawmakers and our politicians. When one of our own risks themselves for the betterment of us all, that's when we need to have their back. We need to do better supporting the people who risk their lives, who risk their careers, like this woman Aramis Ayala, or the judge Olu Stevens, or people like Kaepernick. When they were trying to come at Aramis Ayala and discredit her, that was the time to march and to stand up and protest. When they shed our blood on the street, it's too late. And right now, they are trying to provoke us. We are the ones that need to use these stand your ground laws, especially if you're in a state with a stand your ground law. Make sure you exercise it and protect your family and protect yourself. And I know it's up to the police and the government discretion, and most likely their stand your ground laws won't protect you, but they'll think twice about coming to start a fight with you or coming to try to harm you if they know it's a good chance they won't make it back. The police will think twice before they walk into a crowd that's armed and ready and willing to protect each other. They won't be so quick to harm somebody or violate somebody's human rights. But at this point, they're trying to provoke us. That's why in this case, they bring up stand your ground, but then turn around and reopen the Emmitt Till case, just to add insult to injury.
The Justice Department confirmed today it has reopened the investigation into the 1955 murder of Emmitt Till. The African-American teenager was abducted, beaten, and thrown off a Mississippi bridge. When the nation saw what was done to him, the wheels of the civil rights movement were set into motion. We do caution you, our report begins with a disturbing image that has been seared into America's conscience. Here's Jim Axelrod.
It was the picture that stunned the nation and sparked a movement. 1955, 14-year-old Emmitt Till in his casket, left open at the direction of his mother, Mamie.
There's no way I could tell this story and give them the visual picture of what my son looked like.
Emmitt Till was killed after this woman, then 21-year-old Carolyn Dunham, said he'd made sexual advances toward her. The woman's then-husband and his half-brother were tried and acquitted in less than an hour by an all-white jury in Mississippi. But the Justice Department now confirms the case has been reopened based upon the discovery of new information, going no further since it's an active investigation.
It is the most infamous civil rights case in the history of this country.
But in his book last year, author Tim Tyson reported Dunham spoke to him 10 years ago and admitted she hadn't told the truth about Emmitt in 1955. Tyson says the FBI then reached out.
The result of this is the truth about what happened to Emmitt Till and the way that that speaks to the predicaments that we are wrestling with today and that we will be wrestling with for generations to come.
63 years after Emmitt Till was abducted, murdered, his body mutilated. The question tonight, has justice long been delayed, or will it once again be denied? Till's cousin, Deborah Watts, runs the Emmitt Till Legacy Foundation.
If this case gets solved and justice prevails, our country has an opportunity to heal.
Dunham is alive and living in Raleigh, North Carolina. She'll turn 84
Later this month, a family member turned away a reporter after the news broke, saying, "We don't want to talk to you."
Now, 60 years later, they want to reopen the case. But the men who killed them and admitted to killing them have been dead for a long time. And even if they were alive, they couldn't charge them anyway because that's double jeopardy. And the FBI is talking about new information. Everybody knew that white woman lied for decades now. And they didn't say anything to or about her for 60 years. And that woman, Carolyn Bryant, needs to be arrested and charged and spend whatever left of her life in jail. But the police still aren't going to do anything about it. They are doing this for political reasons because our lives are nothing but politics to them. In the Emmitt Till case, it took the jury 1 hour to say these white men were innocent. With this brother Markeis Mcglockton, it took the police 24 hours to say this white man was innocent. And in 1955, people marched and protested about Emmitt Till. And today, we're still protesting and marching about Markeis Mcglockton and so many other people. At some point, the marching and protesting has got to stop. And we have got to start standing our own ground.
A new challenge for State Attorney Aramis Ayala.
In just hours, she's going to discuss changes to handling death penalty cases, but already we're hearing it may not be enough. News 6 reporter Eric Sandoval is here with reaction from Governor Scott's office tonight. So, Eric, this is all regarding her new panel, right?
Absolutely. And you know, Governor Rick Scott has actually taken away 30 cases from Aramis Ayala. And tonight, we asked the governor's office, is she going to get any of these cases back? And they told us not quite yet. They said first she needs to publicly change her position on the death penalty.
Governor Rick Scott's office says they will be watching a news conference called by State Attorney Aramis Ayala for tomorrow morning. Her staff tells News 6 tonight that she's ready to take questions about a new panel of prosecutors that she says will decide if a case warrants the death penalty. The governor says he wants to see her publicly come out and say the death penalty is back.
It's very important that we think about the families, we think about the victims, we make sure that we stand for justice.
Under my administration, I will not be seeking death penalty.
It was this announcement in March that resulted in the governor reassigning nearly 30 cases to another state attorney's office. Today, the Florida Supreme Court ruled the governor was well within his power to do it.
Today was definitely a glorious day.
Rafael Zaldivar applauded the decision. His son Alex was murdered in 2012. His convicted killer, Besman Okafor, could be sentenced to death. Zaldivar says he has his doubts Ayala will actually change her mind. In fact, when we tweeted the announcement of the news conference this afternoon, Zaldivar responded to us, saying he will be there.
If the case merits the death penalty, so be it. It's not complicated.
And you know, there were a lot of other people that tweeted us tonight about Ayala, many of them calling for her resignation. Once again, her news conference is set for 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, and of course, we will be there, guys.
Certainly not the end of this controversy by any stretch.
Definitely not.
You do know it's none of your damn business, right? Oh, it's my business. How is it your business? Because I paid my tax. I don't give a damn. You ain't paid for these fucking foods, fam. We're gonna build this wall. We're gonna build this wall. Why are you worried about what's in my motherfucking basket? Because why are you in my fucking phone conversation? Period. You can call the police. Man, why the fuck you in my business? It is my business. Mind the business that pay you. You ain't worried about what's in my business. Don't pay you. What? The fuck type of time? She out of my mother. She in my whole last conversation.
Did I swear at you? I didn't swear at you. You just swore. You heard me wrong.
You're lying.
You're lying.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit right here.
Okay.
With you.
You sit right there.
You are a sweetheart. I'm sorry that we're arguing with your mom. She's not being very nice.
Are you just mad because I won't get off my own property? I think that's why you're mad right now.
I don't care.
Okay, so go back upstairs to your kids. Like, why are you sitting here with me?
I'm sitting here because you're preventing my children from sleeping. Do you like me to do that to you?
Who's even watching your kids right now? Are you? Because you're not. You're here with me and my kid.
Are you in one of the affordable units? Or are you in one of the Harvard units?
Mind your business.
I live here. This is my business.
Okay,
this is
good.
my home.
Okay, so sit with me. But it's none of your business where I live, what my name is. No, actually it really
When you're
isn't.
disturbing the whole
Actually, it really isn't. No, because you're the only one down here right now. There's nobody else out here saying that we, are starting trouble, so.
I'm not saying you shut up. I'm asking you nicely.
Okay, but I'm not going anywhere, ma'am. I live here. My kid is not doing anything wrong. Why should I leave?
Which unit do you live in?
It's none of your business.
Actually, it is, because I will come outside your window and scream.
Okay.
You're outside mine.
Okay. Now, excuse me while I go tend to my kid, because you're obviously not.
I drive by and it smells like goddamn weed in your fucking
Who
house.
cares?
That's why the cops are coming right now, motherfucker.
Who gives a
Hurry,
fuck?
Boy, I'm gonna get you, nigga. Fuck.
You hear that? You see that shit? You see that? Get this fucking license plate. I'm gonna fly this motherfucking cracker. Fly this motherfucker. You don't know who I am.
Take your picture. Take your picture. I'm calling you a nigger too. Yeah. Smile, nigga. Smile, nigga.
Yep.
You're harassing me. Put it on the tape, okay? Okay, nigga? Nigga boy. Yeah, keep taking my picture. Keep harassing me, okay?
All right.
Go ahead. Wow. Put it on tape that you can't drive. You cut people off. Make sure you show that to the cop, you stupid nigga.
Absolutely is a bad look for Milwaukee.
It was the applause heard round the world Saturday when Milwaukee Brewers pitcher Josh Hader returned to the game.
Baseball player Josh Hader took the mound for the Brewers Saturday night, his first appearance since the All-Star break, and him being caught posting racist tweets as a teenager in 2011 and 2012. Unfortunately, he was giving a standing ovation by a white crowd before he even pitched. Sports critics and fans alike can't help but assume they were cheering him on for his questionable tweets.
Critics from all over the country quick to question fans who supported Hader after his derogatory tweets and subsequent apology. Among them, Milwaukee Alderman Khalif Rainey, who said in a statement tonight, quote, "This frankly is an embarrassment to the world. The boisterous manner of standing to show support for Hader is nothing less than a dismissive stance against problems of race affecting an entire community."
Embarrassing for the fans to stand up. I wouldn't stand up in that situation, but if maybe they're I don't know what their personal reasons are for standing up. Maybe it's for a guy admitting that he was wrong and apologizing.
Fans we talked to at tonight's game seemed to give Hader and the fans the benefit of the doubt.
Well, you have to know what they were standing up for, and I think they recognize that people make mistakes. Mistakes are forgivable.
In his statement, Rainey also said the cheers for Hader ignore the issues NFL players are highlighting with their silent protest, saying, quote, "Although it seems cynical, I cannot help but think it comes down to skin color. Fans think it starts a conversation."
Forces people to come out and say, you know what, this is not appropriate. This is not the way this city wants to be represented. This is not the way this team wants to be represented.
I was 17 years old, and as a child, I was immature, and I obviously said something that was inexcusable. That doesn't reflect on who I am as a person today, and that's just what it is.
Africa won the World Cup. Africa won the World Cup. Africa won the World Cup. They have to say it's the French team, but look at those guys, huh? You don't get that tan by hanging out in the south of France, my friends. The rich and various backgrounds of these players is a reflection of France's diversity. Now, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I think it's more a reflection of France's colonialism. I understand what the ambassador is saying. In France, a lot of like Nazis use the fact that these players are of African descent to on their Frenchness, you know? So they go, you're not French, you're from Africa, go back to where you came from. When I'm saying they're African, I'm not saying it as a way to exclude them from their Frenchness, but I'm rather using it to include them in my Africanness. France does not refer to its citizens based on their race, religion, or origin. To us, there is no hyphenated identity. America's not a perfect country, but what I love about this place is that people can still celebrate their identity in their Americanness. I watch what politicians say, especially in France, about African migrants. When they are unemployed, when they may commit a crime, or when they are considered unsavory, it's the African immigrants. When their children go on to provide a World Cup victory for France, we should only refer to them as France. I will continue to praise them for being African because I believe that they are of Africa, their parents are from Africa, and they can be French at the same time.
There were jump cuts, multiple outfits, different sets.
I'm trying to talk about Iran. I'm trying to talk about Valerie Jarrett wrote the Iran deal.
I know, but you've told me this 300 times. Do you know that if...
That's what my tweet was about.
I know, you've explained this literally 300 times.
I thought the bitch was white! God damn it! I thought the bitch was white! Fuck!
This is her comeback? Seriously? Roseanne Barr launches an ear-piercing tirade as she attempts to explain the racist tweet that got her fired. The disgraced comedian looks out of it. She takes a drag on a cigarette and yells at a producer off camera.
Are you filming?
Yeah.
Then Roseanne completely flips out.
I'm trying to talk about Iran. I'm trying to talk about Valerie Jarrett wrote the Iran deal.
I know, but you've told me this 300 times. Do you know that if...
That's what my tweet was about.
I know, you've explained this literally 300 times.
I thought the bitch was white! Damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
The video, posted late Thursday night, was recorded for a new talk show the 65-year-old comedian is launching. But don't expect to see it on any network. It'll only be shown on Roseanne's YouTube channel, which has just 22,000 subscribers.
What?
The rant was taped at a film studio owned by Roseanne's son, Jake. On the set, you can see a figurine of a fertility goddess.
Oh.
Over the past few days, Roseanne has uploaded a series of bizarre videos, including this clip called Tips from the Domestic Goddess, offering advice on how to use the restroom standing up. But it's her latest video that really has people scratching their heads.
Oh.
But doesn't that upset you that whites are profiting off the bad experiences of the black community?
We distribute information. So they might make the paper dollar, which in 1993 ain't worth too much, but I get the mental money. I get to spread what I think to other black kids. And when we get that unity, we can make tons of money. When we have that unity where I trust this black man and he trusts me, and we can pool our dollars, and we can be an economic strength. So they make the money for now. That's all right, you know. But
you got the mental money.
I got the minds. I'd rather have the minds than the money.
What about the issue of whether violence is increased by what these kids see in the videos and the guns and the stuff like that? Are you thinking this is having any impact? Don't you think that a kid listening to a radio station that is talking about zooming in the boom boom all day long and shaking butts, and isn't that going to put sex on the minds of kids that may not otherwise, or don't let anybody diss you and they're thinking, I gotta go take care of this person?
Well, see, all rap music is not about that. You've just taken a section of it. Just like all movies aren't pornos. That's just a section of the movie. All movies aren't rated R. So you're just taking a portion and exposing that. The kids of America is violent because America is violent. She deals with her problems with the gun. So how you expect the kids of America not to do the same thing? There's violence in South Africa and in other places in Africa because of the gun. Rap music ain't got nothing to do with that. So they invented the gun, and they've made them very accessible in our community, easy to get to. You know, why is nobody at the Rifle Association talking to them about the guns in our community? No, see, you want to come to the bottom of the barrel. Even if we stop doing the music today, wouldn't nothing change, because we still have these forces. We still have poverty, we still have frustration, we still have weapons. And there you have it.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RIP to the brother Tony Green, to the sister Nia Wilson, to the brother Markeis Mcglockton, and the young ancestor Emmitt Till. We have to realize they are trying to provoke us, and we definitely need to defend ourselves. But we need to stop acting surprised and clueless like this is new. We've been in this war for hundreds of years now. There has been so much blood shed, and the only way to make it stop is if we stop it ourselves. We try to look for every other option other than the one option that we have. And we don't have time for the gender wars. We don't have time to be arguing about religion or beliefs. The one thing they have learned to do that we need to learn how to do is put aside our tribal differences. They have their own tribes, they have their differences, but when it comes to us, they stay on code. At some point, we're going to have to learn how to put aside our differences in order to protect each other, to protect our children, to protect our elderly. America said, give me liberty or give me death. And until we adopt that American mentality, then we're going to be in the same situation. So, as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.